Hello and welcome to Roald Dahl Puffin Virtually Live. Thanks for joining us. I'm Michael Rosen and I'm joined by Roald Dahl's legendary illustrator and former children's laureate, Quentin Blake, to celebrate the life and work of the world's #1 storyteller, Roald Dahl. And we're talking to you live from here, the Roald Dahl Museum and Story Centre in Great Missenden, and we're joined by the Year 6 pupils from Overstone School in a place called Wing. Wave to the camera, guys. There you go. The whole world is looking at you, yes. And of course, that's right, to you, our online viewers from across the globe. In addition to our UK audience, we've got viewers tuning in from, amongst other places, El Salvador, Malaysia, Germany, I ought to wave to each of you, shouldn't I? Australia, are you there? Yes. And Kazakhstan. Hello, Kazakhstan. And so a big, warm welcome to all of you watching out there. And just to remind you that you can send in your questions for either me or Quentin throughout the course of this event via the Puffin Virtually Live website. You should be getting that website address on your screen right now. So that's where you write into, and we'll aim to answer as many of the questions as possible in the time that we've got. Quentin.
What can I say?
No, you could say you're Quentin Blake.
No, I'm Quentin Blake, so we're sure about that.
Yeah.
But I'm not really here to talk, especially. I'm really here more to draw. But there are one or two things that I would like to say. I would like to say something about you, Michael.
That's very nice. Well, maybe nice, maybe not be, yes.
But everybody should know, they probably do know already, but we need to make sure that they know that you are a distinguished poet. You've written lots of books of poetry, lots of other books. You were, like me, we were both children's laureates at one time. And what is very nice for me is that we've worked together, because I remember that I did the pictures for your first book of poems.
I remember.
And I remember that with great pleasure. But you've now written another book of a rather different kind, and here it is.
There we go.
And it's
one each.
Fantastic Mr Dahl. And it's wonderful to have a writer writing a book about a writer. But can you tell us something about some of the things you discovered as you were writing the book?
Yes, I mean, one of the most interesting things I found myself thinking about is the fact that Roald Dahl, we can tell from his name, he's not English. Neither of those names are English names. So I knew that he had Norwegian parents. He came from Norway, but the parents came from Norway. But what I didn't realise was that when he was a boy, he spoke those two languages, Norwegian and English, probably with the same amount of skill. He was what we call bilingual.
Yeah.
And not only that, but also that for his holidays, he would go to Norway. So he had this, I sometimes think it was a bit like he had two heads. He had an English head and a Norwegian head. And that meant that he had a whole other landscape, a whole other world that he could inhabit. But also, really important, his mum used to tell him stories, the great Norse stories about giants and gods and trolls and goblins and all that, and she told them to him in Norwegian. And actually, when you look closely at the stories, you can see some of that Norwegian stuff in the stories. BFG is a giant, isn't he?
Yes, I know. I mean, because I read the stories several times over, you know, very closely. Yes. And after a while, you realise that they're stories about today, but at the same time, they're folk tales as well, aren't they? Yeah,
you can spot Cinderella, you can spot, you know, bad sisters, all sorts of people, you can spot them. And the other thing was that while he was away at school, you go to what's called a day school, you go home in the evenings, don't you? Well, Roald Dahl, he went to schools where he actually slept there, boarding schools. So he wrote home, but he didn't just write home sometimes, he wrote home every single week. Imagine you've got to write home, you folks, every single week, a great big long letter to your mum or dad, whoever looks after you. And that's what he did. He wrote home every single week. And I suppose in a way it was like a training. That's how he became a writer, writing home every week. And I got a chance right here in this museum to see all the letters that he wrote home.
Some of them are in that book, aren't they?
I've put some of them in the book, and I've got a favourite. He was writing to his mum because his mum said she was painting the bathroom. And he said to his mum, make sure that when you paint the toilet seat, okay, don't sit on it while it's still wet. Because if you do, it'll stick to your backside, possibly for a very long time. So there he was, a little boy, writing to his mum, quite a sort of, well, nearly a rude letter. I mean, it would have been thought of as rude all that long time ago. I suppose we don't think that's quite so rude these days, but, you know, 60 years ago or more, no, a lot more than that, yeah, 70 or 80 years ago, people would have thought that was a bit rude. So that was fun, looking at his letters, some of them quite serious, but some of them quite funny. Yeah, that was great, yeah. So, what was it like? You worked with Roald Dahl. I met him 2 or 3 times, but you worked with him. Was that good? Difficult?
All those things. No, it was very, very interesting because the first book I did was called The Enormous Crocodile. And he came to a publisher who suggested he wrote the story, and then they were looking for an illustrator and they found me. But first of all, I just met him in the office, and I was a bit nervous of him because he was a very important and famous person already, and much taller than I was. And, you know, and I sort of thought, am I going to get this right? But in fact, after a while, we got to know each other. And the way that we developed of working is that I used to get the book written down, I mean, a typescript of the story. He'd never tell you anything about it. And then I read it, and I read it again, and I did little drawings of what I thought the people looked like, and bits that would be good to draw. And then I would come down here to Great Misselton with these drawings, and we'd sit on the sofa, and we'd go through them all, and he'd say, oh, yes, that's just right. I thought he might be a bit more sinister, or could we have some more tortoises in this, you know, that sort of thing. He was very good at drawings, and he knew a lot about it.
So he was actually directing you, in a way?
Yes. Well, it was a sort of collaboration, but I mean, no, I wouldn't have done it without, you know. I mean, it was very... and, of course, the great thing about it, for me, from my point of view, is that he wanted the drawings. Some writers don't want drawings, you know, kind of thing. But he wanted the drawings to do some of the work. So you get the story after we got to know each other, and it would say, what you draw here is the chicken getting bigger and bigger, you know, sort of thing. Yes. So there were lots of things to do.
Great. And what was your favourite character to draw, do you think?
That's an awful question, because, you know, every book is a new book, and I used to think, what, you know, you'd open this brown envelope, and what's he done now?
It's the next Roald Dahl book.
Next one.
Yeah.
I think my sort of favourite, I've got lots of favourites. My favourite at the moment, I think, is,
Shall we try and guess as you're doing it?
All right.
Let's see whether
I may not draw it very well
the children from Overstone School can guess. Anyone going to put their hand up and tell me? Yes, sir. You think it's George?
No, it's not.
Hang on.
Wait for the hair.
Wait, let's see. Which one do you think?
Matilda.
Right, he says it's Matilda.
Yes, it is Matilda.
Matilda. Oh, look, she's reading a book.
That helps, doesn't it? Yes.
Yes. There she is.
There she is.
Oh, excellent.
There she is. No, I like her very much because she's so interesting, and of course she's fascinated by books, and of course we're fascinated by books as well. So, and I often
that's what saves her, really. The books is
absolutely.
The world she goes to escape from these horrible parents and the horrible teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
The horrible teacher is very enjoyable to draw as well, but
that bit where she throws the child out of the window.
I did enjoy that.
Does that happen in your school? Do you get thrown out of the window? Oh, right. Oh, I thought that happened.
Did someone say yes? Yes. There we are. There's lovely. Matilda.
Tell me, look, the face there, Matilda's only got dots for eyes, but you can sort of feel her character. How do you do that with just dots?
I don't know. I mean, you have to, it's like a lot of things in drawing, you have to want it very much as you're doing it. It's like acting, you know. If you want to feel sad, or if you want to feel cheerful, and you feel that as you're drawing the picture.
She's quite grown up, isn't she?
Yes, because this was something that I drew Matilda lots of times before we got to the final drawings. And I started off drawing, because she's just a little girl, and I started off drawing her, you know, like a little girl, like this, you know, sort of thing. And I thought, but because the thing about her is that she's got a huge intelligence. And so, in a way, I wanted to draw her so she looked young, but at the same time looked as though she might be extremely brainy and really more grown up than she appeared to be at first. So
do you think she looks brainy? Yes, has he done that? That's incredible, isn't it? With just 2 dots, it's amazing. Yeah, there she is. Lovely. Well, we've had a lot of requests for you to draw some of our viewers' favourite characters. So Quentin, it would be great if you wouldn't mind drawing some of their requests. So let's have a look and see what... Oh, right, here's the first one. It's come up on there. It says, can you please draw, are you ready for this one? Fantastic Mr Fox.
Fantastic Mr Fox.
Is that possible?
It's possible. I'll have a go.
Yes.
The thing is, a lot of these I drew a long time ago, and I can't always remember exactly what they're like. So if I get a bit wrong...
we'll forgive you.
We'll forgive you.
It's a new version, yeah. Do foxes come in your part of the world? Do you see foxes in Wing? I live in the centre of London, and we see them all the time. I was once going to a football match at Arsenal, and I looked down, and there was a fox watching us as we walked into the ground. It's amazing. Could have been him. Fantastic Mr Fox.
I don't know whether...
Planning on getting some cider.
Mm-hmm. Here he is.
Oh, yes.
We'll say he's still got a tail at this time. He loses it later on.
Yes.
But it's nice to draw, so I'll put it in there. And this is the sack with the chickens. I don't want to draw all the chickens, but I'll just draw their legs sticking out, quite like that. You can tell there are lots in there.
Yes.
So a few feathers, like that. A few feathers, and he's escaping through the night. We'll put the moon in so we know it's night time. Okay.
Lovely.
I'll just do one or two whiskers.
Oh, go on then.
For no extra charge. Yes, right,
yeah.
okay.
And you see, you've got that foot on the ground, that foot up in the air. That tells us he's moving.
On his way, yes, that's right, yes. I love it when people are moving about.
Which is a trick, because he isn't moving, he's static on the page.
Yes.
You show him moving.
Yes, we try and suggest he's moving.
Lovely.
I think he's got a bit fatter than he's supposed to be. I'll make the sack a bit fatter. There.
You see how you can cheat afterwards? It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yes.
There we go.
Love it.
Wonderful.
Right.
It's like a writing.
Okay.
It's like a drawing class.
Yes.
Now I've got another letter here. It says, where's it say? We would love you to draw. Says Year 6D from Lowndes Junior School in Chapeltown in Sheffield. Hi, Lowndes Junior School. They would like an Oompa-Loompa.
Oh yes, good.
I
love Oompa-Loompas.
Overstone School of Packing.
Several people have illustrated this book. Oops,
whoops,
we're losing the drawings.
Yep.
And so mine don't look quite the same as other people's, but they're the way I imagine them. And I like them very much because they're... They have a funny sort of primitive costume, like cavemen. And they've got long hair. And I thought it'd be jolly nice if I made it stand on end. I think it makes them look more, because they're sort of the spirit of mischief, really, aren't they? You know,
Have any of you tried to draw Oompa-Loompas? Yes? Because you can always do that with books, you know. I know Quentin may not want to hear this, but you can always try and do drawings yourselves. For
I love it when people... Yes, I really like it. And I think the lady Oompa-Loompas, I think they had sort of leaves or something like that, I think. But they
look a little bit like, I know it dates me, but like kind of punk singers.
They are a bit like that.
Yes. It's a bit...
Well, there's a bit of...
80s.
And not behaving yourself.
Yes.
That's in it as well, I think.
Yeah. They're nice, aren't they?
Oompa-Loompas.
Oompa-Loompas.
I love doing the hair.
Oh, right, we've got something from a teacher here. I'm a teacher at Over Primary School in Cambridge, not quite the same name as you, and my class will be watching the live webcast. You're watching it even now. Hello, the children at Over, and using it to base some of their artwork on. There you go, just as we were saying. We'll be using some of Quentin's tips, he's been giving you them, to help us draw our own characters. We would love it if Quentin would be able to draw James or any of the characters from James and the Giant Peach to help us with our project. And that comes from Paul Hazelhurst, Woodpeckers, Cambridge. Does it mean he is a woodpecker? Is Paul Hazelhurst a woodpecker? No. You never know, woodpecker might get in the drawing now. Right, so we're going to get James.
One of the important things in drawings is how much space things take up. So, I mean, I won't draw all the insects because it's fascinating to draw them, but it takes ages. You know, we'd be here for hours. But the important thing is, one of the things is scale, so that you know, for instance, with the BFG, you want to show that he's very large. And the peach is a giant peach, so James has got to be quite small. You want to make sure the peach is huge like that, you see.
Yes.
And then you can just, if you've got some watercolour or something, or maybe a pencil, you can do some shading on it. So that it's very important to make it look round.
Like you can sort of feel the shape of it.
That's
Is that what
right,
we're doing?
yes.
Yeah. Lovely.
And well, I mean, if they're doing a big picture, you'll be able to get a huge piece. That'll be wonderful. Then you get the people sitting on the top of it.
Yes. And so because you take it off to the edges, we then imagine that the insects are somewhere else and all that other world is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we quite often think of a frame, we've got to put everything in it, like on television, but in actual fact, in drawing...
No, sometimes if it goes over the edge, it suggests an awful lot of things are happening. And I remember when I was doing the pictures for Ezio Trot, which is that book with the tortoises in, Roald said, we want to see lots of tortoises that go right off the edge.
Yeah, we're going to have to just push that a wee bit there like that.
Okay.
So that all the people at home...
Oh, we've got it there.
And in school can see that, yes.
So James gets into the picture as well.
Oh, yes, there he is. Lovely. Now, Dahl did, of course, invent all of these wonderful characters while he was in his writing hut. Did you ever go to his writing hut?
Yes, I saw it, yes.
Oh, right, yeah. And that was at the bottom of his garden. Now, the hut, amazingly, has recently been moved to the museum right here. In fact, it's just over there. We can see it from where we are. And they've done it in order to preserve, in order to keep everything that was in it. And we've got an exclusive behind-the-scenes piece of footage for you to watch to get a sneak peek inside the hut. Let's have a look. I'm in Roald Dahl's writing hut. You're on the other side of a glass wall. Now, Roald Dahl used to sit there in that very chair writing all those books that you love and you've read. He used to put this board down and sit there writing on it. Sometimes when it was cold, he covered himself up with this stuff here. And as you can see, he surrounded himself with the objects, with the things that he liked. He loved collecting things. And I want to show you something. See that? Do you know what that is? Well, Roald Dahl loved chocolate, and chocolate used to come covered in silver paper. He collected the silver paper together. Every single bit of silver paper, he'd collect it and roll it up and roll it up and roll it up. So that is made up of hundreds of bits of silver paper that was wrapped round the chocolate that he ate. And there he could look at it. It's like almost like a chocolate museum in one ball. I love it. Now, do you know what that is? Well, at the top of your leg, there's a kind of ball. You've got a joint that's called a ball and socket joint. Roald Dahl had an operation to replace the ball bit of his leg. And do you know what? He kept the ball. There it is, the top of his leg. Imagine that, sitting in your room looking at a bit of your own skeleton. Now, over here, this is the paper that Roald Dahl loved writing on. He had to send away for it to New York from a law office, so it's legal paper. He loved writing on yellow paper. There's his favourite pencils as well. He always used to send off to get exactly the right pencils. And do you know what this is? This is a bit of his writing of the BFG, which is 30 years old this year. And I'm going to have a little look at it. So it's glasses on. And you can see I've got gloves on because you must touch this stuff very carefully. If you put your fingerprints all over it, it spoils it. And now let's have a look and see what he's doing here. What he's doing, look, he's making up BFG words. Bizfizz, buzzfuzz, spitzwoggler, spitzwangler, bag bluster, wopsy wobbly. And he scribbled things out and he's trying, what's he got there? He didn't like this one, squiffer wuffle or something. And he's got flash bubbly. And then he's got some things in the margin and you can see he scribbles things out. That's what writers do. We never get it right first time. And here he is making up BFG language. And up the top he's got the flesh bump eating giant. Oh, that's disgusting, isn't it? Isn't that wonderful? And there you can see his mind at work making up BFG language. I'm going to put that back right where it is. Wow, BFG, Roald Dahl, the writing hut. Very good. And welcome back. Now, I was talking about the BFG at the end there, and it's of course the BFG's 30th anniversary this year. Yes, it came out 30 years ago. Wow. You really got to know Dahl when you illustrated the BFG, didn't you? That was, you kind of really got to know him. And he, in fact, did he really influence a lot of the way you drew the BFG?
We had a lot of conversations about what he looked like, because we weren't quite sure to begin with what he was going to wear. So we had a lot of conversations about, got round to the fact he was wearing a waistcoat, and he actually sent me through the post one of his own sandals, which look like, they look kind of like this. There's one in the museum, as a matter of fact, and they look, if I remember right, they look sort of like this. And they're Norwegian sandals, they're not like anything else. And so if you look at the pictures in the book, that's what the BFG is wearing.
So he said to you, the BFG has got to have
those
my
sandals.
Norwegian sandals
Yes, that's
on.
right, yes.
Oh, that's
well,
great.
no, it was wonderful, because I could never have invented them for myself, you know.
Yes. Right, now we've got a letter from school, and it says, "Dear Quentin, our favourite character is the BFG. Can you please draw him for us? He makes the children laugh, especially the way he speaks, although I do have to tell them that he doesn't use correct English, which makes them laugh. And that comes from Miss Tamsin Bradley, Year 6, Greensfield Primary in Winsford." Well, but they're not correct English, that's all part of the fun, isn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. No, we enjoy all that.
Do you like the BFG? Yes. I like the way he says, "I is." I like that. "I is." Very good. Oh, here it comes.
I can't do it because he's very big and he's a giant, so I don't think the paper is the ears are the bit I like best. I always love drawing the ears, and that, you know, you can make them go in all different directions, which is so fascinating. A little bit of hair, a little bit of eyebrows, not much, and here he is. He's got his sleeves rolled up, and he's got very big hands, gigantic hands.
What are those cucumbery things that he eats? What are they called? Yes. Snozcumbers. Yes, they're disgusting, aren't they? Mind you, Sophie's very brave. She has a go at eating them, doesn't she?
Oh, yes. No, she's very courageous.
Oh, there she is, I think, isn't
Here
it?
she is.
You'll
With
have
her
to go and
spectacles.
see the sandal later if you haven't seen it already, because it is here in the museum, which is amazing, isn't it? Oh, here she is.
There she is, standing on his hand. And it's a wonderful friendship between them, isn't it?
Yeah. That's lovely. Again, in drawings, you think, is this thing that Quentin's saying about scale. You can make people small and huge and so on, and, you know, which you couldn't do in real life. You can do it with drawing.
Yes,
Lovely.
no, I love drawing that.
That's lovely. Thank you, Quentin, very much indeed. Now, continuing the theme of the BFG, we've got a very special guest appearance for you now. So please settle down, make yourselves comfortable, and enjoy the next piece of footage.
The BFG by Roald Dahl. Dreams. The big friendly giant was seated at the great table in his cave, and he was doing his homework. Sophie sat cross-legged on the tabletop nearby, watching him at work. The glass jar containing the one and only good dream they had caught that day stood between them. The BFG, with great care and patience, was printing something on a piece of paper with an enormous pencil. "What are you writing?" Sophie asked him. "Every dream is having its special label on the bottle," the BFG said. "How else could I be finding the one I'm wanting in a hurry?" "But can you really and truly tell what sort of dream it's going to be by simply listening to it?" Sophie asked. "I can," the BFG said, not looking up. "But how? Is it by the way it hums and buzzes?" "You is less or more right," the BFG said. "Every dream in the world is making a different sort of buzzy hum music, and these grand swashbuckling ears of mine is able to read that music." "By music, do you mean tunes?" "I is not meaning tunes." "Then what do you mean?" "Human beings is having their own music, right or left." Right, Sophie said. Lots of music. And sometimes human beings is very overcome when they is hearing wondrous music. They is getting shivers down their spindles. Right or left? Right, Sophie said. So the music is saying something to them. It is sending a message. I do not think that human beings is knowing what that message is, but they is loving it just the same. That's about right, Sophie said. But because of these jump-swiffling ears of mine, the BFG said, I is not only able to hear the music that dreams is making, but I is understanding it also. What do you mean, understanding it? Sophie said. I can read it, the BFG said. It talks to me. It is like a language. I find that just a little hard to believe, Sophie said. I'll bet you is also finding it hard to believe in quagwinkles, the BFG said, and how they is visiting us from the stars. Of course I don't believe that, Sophie said. The BFG regarded her gravely, with those huge eyes of his. I hope you will forgive me, he said, if I tell you that human beings is thinking they is very clever, but they is not. They is nearly all of them not munchers and squeak pips. I beg your pardon, Sophie said. The matter with human beings, the BFG went on, is that they is absolutely refusing to believe in anything unless they is actually seeing it right in front of their own schnozzles. Of course quagwinkles is existing. I is meeting them oftenly. I is even chittering to them. He turned away contemptuously from Zoe and resumed his writing. Sophie moved over to read what he had written so far. The letters were printed big and bold, but were not very well formed. Here is what it said. This dream is about how I is saving my teacher from drowning. I is diving into the river from a high bridge, and I is dragging my teacher to the bank, and then I is giving him the kiss of death. The kiss of what? Sophie asked. The BFG stopped writing and raised his head slowly. His eyes rested on Sophie's face. I is telling you once before, he said quietly, that I is never having a chance to go to school. I is full of mistakes. They is not my fault. I do my best. You is a lovely little girl, but please remember that you is not exactly Mr. Know-Everything yourself. Happy Roald Dahl Day, everyone.
Welcome back. Now, the BFG was talking about dream catching there, and we've been catching some of your dreams too. So here's the first one. Someone wrote into us and said, I had a dream that I was in the shower and decided to put soap in my ears. I began to pull out really long hairs from my ears. Next thing I knew, I was flying through the air and landed in a sweet shop, and I was invisible. And that comes from Jack, who's in Larch's class. And now here's the next one. My dream was the night after we visited Wookey Hole. That's a great big hole with stalagmites and stalactites in Somerset. I dreamt that I was King Kong in Dinosaur Valley.
Can I do that?
Yeah, go on then. Yeah, that's right. King Kong in Dinosaur Valley, and I tried to go through Wookey Caves. But after going through the first two caves, I was in the smelly cheddar cheese cave, and I got stuck, and I couldn't stand the smell. After 3 hours of struggling, I made a very loud roar, rah, which made some stalactites drop. Because you remember that tights fall down and mites creep up. Stalactites drop, which opened up the top of the cave, and I managed to climb through the top, but I fell from the top and bruised my bottom. And that comes from Jack Mayer, Year 6 at Bosham or Bosham Primary School. Thank you very much indeed. That's what, oh, look. He's turned into, or he's dreaming of turning into King Kong.
Yes.
Yes. Of course, King Kong, we get to feel quite sorry for King Kong, don't we, in the film?
Especially if he falls on his bottom.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a hole. sorry-making thing. So that's a lovely couple of dreams that we caught there. Now, it's your turn to throw some questions, and we've got some right here. Have a little look at them. This comes from St Andrew's School in, I better pronounce this properly, Cullompton in Devon. Apologies if I pronounce that wrongly. They say very kindly to me, we absolutely adore your poetry and illustrations. No, not me with the illustrations, Quentin with the illustrations. There are lots of us who aspire to be both artists and authors. Please could you give us a big hello? Okay, I'll just try that. Hello. Don't know whether that was big enough.
I think a bit bigger.
Okay.
It's a long way away.
It is. Hello! Maybe that's it. I probably ruined the microphone. Now, what's the next one? We are Year 5s watching in our classroom now. Hello, Year 5s. We're really enjoying Quentin draw the amazing illustrations. Please, Quentin, can you tell us how you got into illustrating in the first place? And that's Miss Hall at Bridgewater Primary School in England. How did you get into illustrating in the first place?
Well, by just drawing on pieces of paper. And then when I got to school, I used to draw inside the covers of the exercise books. And then I just knew I liked drawing. But when I was drawing in the exercise books, I had a Latin teacher who had, her husband was an artist and a cartoonist. And so I went and talked to him, and I thought, this is something perhaps I could do. So I started doing jokes. They were terrible drawings at the time, because I didn't really know how to draw. But I knew I wanted to draw. And so I used to send them into magazines. And while I was still at school, some of them got printed. And so it was
still at school?
16, I think, something like that. But, I mean, they weren't very good drawings, but it was such an encouragement to me. And in a sense, I sort of learnt to draw afterwards. And I spent, after I'd been a student, I went to an art school and I did lots and lots of life drawing, you know, in drawing from the model in the studio. And that's, you've got to do lots of that. But I mean, that's how I got into it, really, drawing for magazines. And then I thought, I really like telling stories, so wouldn't it be nice to have a whole book to yourself? And I got a friend to write a story, and we made a book of it. So that was the start.
And what were you like at Latin?
Terrible.
Right. Were there things that in your own life that gave you inspiration for your drawings? That came from Ash Class, Lancott Lower in Dunstable.
I don't think so, really. I think, I tell you what was inspiring in a way, is that when I was a young man, a boy and a young man, I took part in the school play, and I also went to the theatre. And I always think drawing illustrations for books is a bit like acting, so that you read this Roald Dahl story and you think, oh, I would like to be that witch, you know, or something like that, and you sort of imagine yourself doing. That's a kind of inspiration.
Ah, yes, yeah. Right, I think we've got some questions from you, haven't we? Let's begin with you. You tell us your name on the front row and tell us your question.
I'm Kieran. Mr. Michael Rosen, were you good at writing at school? What tips would you give us?
I was quite good at writing stories and descriptions, as they used to say, but not very good at writing poems. We didn't get much help at that when I was at school. I remember writing perhaps the most boring poem that's ever been written, and I can remember only one line from it, and that line goes, "And now the train is slowing down." And I'm hoping that that is the most boring line of any poem ever. If anyone can think of a more boring line, then you do better than me. Tips: read lots of poems, read lots of stories, and then as you're reading and thinking, start thinking that question, I could write something like that. Quite often that's one of the biggest things to get you going. So you could be reading a Roald Dahl book, you could be reading a book by anybody you like, read it, and then when you go, oh, I'd quite like to write something like that, put the book to one side, have a scribble. Yeah, but you have to read lots, always read lots. Great. Shall we have another one from you? Yes, you tell us your name and the question.
Hi, I'm Eden. What job did you dream of doing when you were at school, Mr. Blake?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I started to dream of being an artist, actually, but I thought I wouldn't be able to, because everybody knows that artists don't make any money. At least it's quite hard to make money. And so I thought what I will probably be is a teacher. And I actually trained to be a teacher. That's the only thing I've got a certificate for.
Oh, right.
And I never talk very much, but it's very useful if you're doing reading books and doing illustrations. It's all about storytelling and learning to talk in class. Well, I mean, you must know that. If you talk to audiences of children or audiences of adults, then you think about what they're thinking about as well. So you draw things that get a reaction from the people you're talking to.
And some of the people, when you see picture books, some of the people who do those picture books were taught by Quentin, because Quentin taught people at a special art school. So let's have another question from here. Whoops, lost my earpiece. Stick that back in. Ow. My dad, talking of ears, my dad has got big ears, talks in a funny accent, and eats strange things. Is he the BFG, says Mr. Payne from Landscore Primary in the UK. Is he the BFG, Mr. Payne's dad?
I don't think so. I think he's got... How tall is he?
Well, he doesn't say how tall he is.
If he's 18 feet tall, it may be him.
Yeah, probably. I mean, most teachers' dads are 18 foot tall. Is your dad 18 foot tall?
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. But maybe, you see, if you imagine someone is the BFG, then is it in a way they become the BFG?
Yes,
do you think so?
Yeah, no, I think that's true.
Very good. Let's have another question. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Connor. Mr. Quentin Blake, did you ever have any input into Roald Dahl stories?
Did I contribute anything to them? I don't think I did. He wrote them all before he showed them. I mean, he wouldn't show them to me while he was doing them, because he used to say, I'm writing another one. You'll have some fun with this one. Or sometimes he'd say, you'll have some trouble with this one. Because he didn't want to tell you beforehand. The only thing that I never changed anything, but once or twice the stories changed after I got them. So that in George's Marvellous Medicine, where the horrible grandmother gets smaller and smaller, when I first got the story, she only went about that high, and she could run about on the mantelpiece. You see, and then he said, I'm going to write a bit more. The next time was an extra page in which she disappeared altogether, because she was so horrible. I think he thought she must get rid of it.
Like it. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for all your fantastic questions and requests. I think that's all we've got time for, I'm afraid. I don't know whether we can squeeze one more question in or not. I think probably not. But I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to thank Quentin Blake, that is, of course, for making this such a special and unique experience. And to our viewers, we hope to see you all again soon. Oh, have we got time maybe for one last postscript question? Let's have a look. That was a nice little thing. Well, after I've said goodbye, and I will come back again. For Michael Rosen, what is your favourite Roald Dahl book? Do you read it a lot? Do you know, I'm quite a greedy reader, and what I do is I have a favourite, I read it, then I push it away, and then I think of another one. So Matilda's been a favourite for a while. Danny, Champion of the World, I love, because there are very few books for anybody that have a nice relationship between a boy and his dad. For some reason or other, and I'm guilty of this as well, we quite often make the relationship between a boy and his dad into a kind of bad relationship. So anyway, I love Danny, Champion of the World, and recently I read The Twits to my 7-year-old son, and boy did we have a laugh. So I love The Twits. Now at the moment, The Twits is top of the charts for me. So there you go, that's our postscript. Thanks ever so much for watching, for logging on. Thank you all ever so much from Overstone School. Give us a wave, Overstone. There we are, you might want to wave to that camera, and if you're lucky, you'll be all the people all over the world. El Salvador, Malaysia, Kazakhstan will be able to see you. And Quentin's not going to say goodbye, he's drawn goodbye.
Can you see it all? Yes. Well, that might be us.
Yes.
In our younger days.
Ah, yes, indeed. I'm the short one.
No, I'm the short one.